A 17-time world champion, a legitimate Hollywood star, a life-changing Make-A-Wish hero, a surefire Hall of Famer, and a man of many, many memes. I'm Andy from WhatCulture Wrestling, and here are 25 things you didn't know about John Cena. Number 25. The Giant Pizza. It won't have escaped anybody's attention that John Cena has been a bloody tank for most of his life. Maintaining that muscle mass means consuming a lot of food. Ideally, a young John would have probably liked to feast on broccoli, chicken breast, and rice, but he couldn't afford to be picky after moving away from home to California in order to pursue his goals in the fitness industry. A young John was broke and didn't have much money for food, so imagine how wide his eyes got when he noticed that a local restaurant was running a pizza promotion. Basically, if you could stomach a ridiculously huge pie in one sitting, the eatery would give it to you for free. Cena made like Beards Meets Food, beat the challenge, and kept returning for more. Eventually, the manager said, "Come on, John, you're eating me out of a business here. I will give you pizza for free if you would just stop hammering this damn challenge and putting me on the unemployment line." Suddenly, Cena had what he wanted, a place to go to grab some free food. So the moral of the story is that if you want free food, eat a dangerous amount of pizza. Armed with the dangerous knowledge that he physically wouldn't be able to pay for the food if he didn't finish it, Cena went to work and polished it off every single night he visited. And yet, when I choose to eat nothing but pizza for a week, I get called a slob. Where's the consistency? Number 24. He was bullied for polka dots. Every kid does something to prove they're cooler than their parents, and John Cena was no different. On Stephanie's Places for ESPN, he admitted he got into rap music purely to see how his mum and dad would react. If it annoyed them, even better. Classic teenage rebellion, but while at home, he was showing off. At school, he was fending off bullies. Apparently, young John was getting grief for wearing, and these are his words, turquoise polka dots. What a crime. Who do you think he was, a knockoff Dusty Rhodes? Naturally, the other kids weren't having it, and the poor git was bullied around the block. Cena actually went through some pretty nasty treatment growing up, and that's what pushed him to start lifting weights. He just wanted to defend himself. Didn't exactly plan on becoming a global icon in the process. But once he started seeing results, the confidence kicked in, the bullies backed off, and the rest was history. Who'd have guessed that a questionable fashion choice would later lead to weightlifting, a fitness career, and eventually pro wrestling immortality? Sure, kids should take it easy in the gym, but back then, John was just trying to survive school. It worked. The bullies got an attitude adjustment, and so did he. Number 23. John lived in his car and kinda liked it. Here's another gem from John's chat with Stephanie McMahon on ESPN. When he first moved to California chasing a career in fitness, the guy was broke. Like, living in his car broke. But instead of treating it like some kind of tragic backstory or something he couldn't overcome, Cena called the whole experience dope. In his words, because nothing says life lesson quite like sleeping in a Robin Reliant. He managed to bag a job at his local Gold's Gym, which kindly let him park outside. So his daily routine went something like this. Wake up in the car, shower at work, train clients, close up shop, hit his own workout, then back to his four-wheeled apartment. In between all that, presumably, is where he'd fit in the all-you-can-eat pizza challenge. On the show, Stephanie McMahon, of course, couldn't exactly relate. Growing up a McMahon, she didn't exactly have to worry about sleeping in a parking lot, but Cena wasn't bitter about it. His 1991 Lincoln Continental might not have been the most glamorous residence, but it kept him dry, kept him safe, and kept the dream alive. That stretch of car life taught him to appreciate everything he has earned since. And honestly, somebody needs to track down that Lincoln, because in wrestling history, that thing's right up there with the SmackDown Fist and Shane McMahon's lockbox. Number 22. He started reading at 40. Some people love a good paperback, others swear by their Kindle. And then there's John Cena, a man who didn't properly start reading until he was 40 years old. Yep, while most of us were forced through Lord of the Flies or something similar at school, John was too busy becoming one of the most successful wrestlers on the planet to bother with page turning. Fair enough, he probably had other things going on. At 48 years old now, Cena told the Wall Street Journal in 2024 that he only started picking up books once he hit the big 40. Even joked that his eyesight is getting worse, so he might have picked the worst possible time to start. Still, he's now an avid reader who makes time to relax with a book, or presumably whatever self-help improvement manual was on sale at the airport. Just picture it, Wrestlemania 41. Cena beats Cody Rhodes for the WWE title, probably for the last time. He shakes his hand backstage, says thank you for the house, brother, maybe hits the after party for a little bit, then heads back to his hotel room. The new champ sits down, exhales, and then starts reading about, I don't know, flipping Goosebumps or something. Somewhere, millions of wrestling fans are furiously debating his win online. Half of them ecstatic, half of them outraged. And here's John, the man who caused it all, quietly turning pages and saluting the great man R.L. Stein. Either way, he is winning. We could all do with rebuilding our brains in this era of Instagram Reels and non-stop TikToks, and feasting on a good book is one of the best ways to stave off the brain rot. Number 21. His surname has a lot of meanings. Not every star signed to WWE gets to keep their shoot name. A lot of the time, WWE change names purely for branding purposes so that they can own the IP and make money from it. Mariah May to Blake Monroe, Ricky Starks to Ricky Saints. This has been happening for decades and continues to this day. Thankfully, John Cena dodged the bullet. No goofy stage name, no forced gimmick, which is probably because John Cena already sounds like a brand. Short, punchy, marketable, but here's the best part. The word Cena actually means different things in different languages. In Spanish, it's dinner. In Polish, it's price. In Portuguese, it means a scene, like in a movie. And in Latin, it's just the main meal of the day. Again, we just keep coming back to those free pizzas, don't we? John hasn't always gone by his real name, though. Before he hit the main roster and scalped Kurt Angle in the face with ruthless aggression, he was known as Prototype in OVW. A pretty generic ring name for a guy who was a pretty generic wrestler at the time, but totally acceptable developmental fare. Regardless, it's not exactly The Rock, and it's hard to imagine Cena ever reaching the same level of success had he not pivoted away from Prototype. Number 20. Why he picked jorts. Cena has worn several types of ring attire throughout his career. His earliest days on the WWE roster saw him wear multicolored trunks, longer than usual but not quite to the knee. Once he changed gimmicks in late 2002 and became a bad boy rapper, John switched to a mix of jean shorts and cargo shorts. He liked both, but had to find the right quality or face embarrassment. Confused? Well, Cena once told James Corden, of all people, that he picked denim as a staple because it didn't rip easily. He had torn a few pairs of cargo shorts to shreds, and he always found it awkward when everybody was staring at his crotch. So denim, which is a tougher material, became the go-to, especially on longer WWE tours. When asked why he didn't go with short trunks like fellow top stars Triple H, The Rock, Brock Lesnar, and others, Cena revealed that he just didn't feel comfortable in underwear, which he pointed out most wrestling trunks effectively are. That only makes that scene in the Suicide Squad all the more confusing. In terms of footwear, John chose sneakers so that he would stand out from the rest of the roster. Most wrestlers go for boots of varying lengths, and he wanted to look totally different. Plus, the shoes helped fit the gimmick, and they went with the jorts better than any kind of standard wrestling boots ever could have. Number 19. He had cancerous spots removed. Nobody's health should ever be taken for granted, but it's easy to overlook certain red flags when you're young, athletic, and distracted by other things. Cena revealed when promoting a partnership with Neutrogena in early 2025 that he never wore sunscreen growing up. Eventually, he decided to get a skin checkup and had a cancerous spot removed from his right pec. Then, Cena went back to see his doctor and had another removed on his right shoulder. When talking about all of this, he said, "It shows up like a white polka dot on the side of my chest and on my shoulder. If you watch WWE, you'll be able to see them." Personally, I can't say I'd ever noticed what Cena was talking about, and neither could John until he fully got it checked out, clearly. Of course, it's a very good thing that John caught wind of this so early and was able to get healthy before anything more serious developed. His doctor was on the ball. The importance of one's health should not be ignored, but it's worth repeating because a lot of times people don't get themselves checked out enough. Cena put that over huge during the Neutrogena bit. Further, Cena was grateful that his doctor was so gentle about the whole thing and helped put his mind at rest. The dreaded C word comes as a huge fright, so John thanks his lucky stars that he managed to catch the affected areas relatively early and continue his career. Number 18. What he does on his days off. Have you ever wondered what top-tier performers like John Cena do when they have a rare day off? During his peak, Cena was on the road relentlessly with WWE. It wasn't uncommon back then for wrestlers to get 2 days off a week if they were lucky, and then most of that time would be spent catching up on bills, laundry, and housework, and then they had to pack a case and get right back on the trail for even more shows. It was grueling, but Cena told the Wall Street Journal that he liked to call days off fuck-around days during his prime, and that is still something he uses today. The man himself goes out of his way to do absolutely nothing productive whatsoever. He explained, "The productivity is doing nothing. It could be just looking around and listening to the bees through the trees for 8 hours. Yes, it's kind of hard to imagine somebody with Cena's work ethic having days off at all, but everybody needs them. I need a break from time to time myself, and all I do is record stuff about wrestling and put it on the internet. Back in the day, John Cena sometimes went from headlining headlining WrestleMania to making personal appearances, then working another damn match, all within 24 hours. So clearly, he needed a little downtime. Most people know that Cena has always been a bit of a gamer too. He once boasted about his sweet PC rig, so maybe that played a part in his occasional days off. From wrestling Triple H and Randy Orton to camping on Call of Duty. What a swine. I bet he was using Model 1887s before they got patched out as well. Good old Modern Warfare 2. We may never see your like again. Number 17. Lifting at his gym prompted his WWE retirement. On Stephanie's Places, John discussed the community atmosphere that he has worked to cultivate at his own private gym. Various WWE stars, including Bray Wyatt, Big E, and others have visited over the years, and they've all logged workout numbers for the wall. Famously, Big E still holds the record for the best bench press, and some other exercises as well, and as such, he is immortalized on the leaderboard. Pushing his own personal best to the limit has always been something that Cena has enjoyed, but he told Stephanie that he started to notice how much he'd been struggling to match his old weightlifting numbers as he grew older. That was a humbling moment, and it made the WWE icon question his mortality as well as just how long he could keep going as a pro wrestler, even on a part-time basis. According to Cena on the ESPN show, toiling in the gym made him realize that it was time to call it a day in ring. Privately, without telling a soul, he made peace with the idea that he wouldn't be John Cena, WWE superstar, for too much longer. Age was catching up with him, and despite being stronger and in better shape at 48 than most people a third of his age, Cena was running out of time. Cena and WWE went on to announce that he would be embarking on a year-long retirement tour throughout 2025. That tour witnessed countless ups and downs, but it was a decision that John himself knew he had to reconcile before moving on with the rest of his life. He can't be the same beast he was in the gym back in the day, but he can be the best version of himself as he closes in on 50. Number 16. He ate 10,000 calories of Tic Tacs a day. Every wrestler has a weird pre-match ritual. Mick Foley used to blast pop music before throwing himself through barbed wire. Some wrestlers do hyper-specific warm-ups to get in the zone, and Scott Steiner, well, he probably spent his pre-show time teaching everybody in the locker room why their chances of winning were drastically reduced. John Cena's ritual, however, a little less violent and a lot more minty. For a while, he was absolutely addicted to Tic Tacs. He told the Kelly Clarkson show that he had to wean himself off of them after getting through 3 boxes a day. 3 boxes. That's not the little tiny ones. I'm talking pallets. That's not a mint habit. That's a cry for help. Apparently, Cena had spent 20 minutes before every match just shoveling them in, which he guessed came to around 10,000 calories of straight sugar. That's not a pre-match snack. That's a medical emergency. Cena called it a nervous superstition, but really, it sounds like a man trying to single-handedly destroy the global supply of Tic Tacs. Put the mints down, John. Nobody needs that much freshness. Eventually, he did quit the habit, though he never said what replaced it. Whatever it was, at least his breath was no longer minty enough to kill a small vampire. And that's not because Cena didn't want to put Nosferatu over at WrestleMania 2000 BC, brother. Number 15. Lunch with him once cost fans 25 grand. How many Tic Tacs do you think you can buy for $25,000? In this economy, barely enough to stock the shelves at your local gas station, I imagine. But don't worry, this isn't an economics lecture. It's still an expose on everybody's favourite invisible man. Food prices just happen to be relevant because wait till you hear this one. Heading into WrestleMania 41 weekend, WWE and On Location announced that fans could enjoy a private lunch with John Cena for a cool $25,000. Yep, lunch. Not a yacht trip, not a blood diamond, lunch. It was at least in a 5-star restaurant, so you got the combined experience of meeting John Cena and eating at a world-class establishment. That being said, if I'm paying 25 G's, you best be covering my Uber there and back as well. And that Uber better be a private jet with diamonds. Thankfully, Cena did show up to these events. The man's got class after all, but even he must have looked at that price tag and thought, really? Shoutouts to anybody actually willing to drop that kind of money just to share fries with a wrestler, because the absurdity is kind of funny. Other WrestleMania weekend packages included watching the show from a private box with random legends and so forth. And in a couple of years, 25 grand is probably what you're going to be paying for a seat behind the entrance ramp anyway. Yay! Price gouging! It was basically a license to print money for John and WWE and On Location. Still, you have to wonder, did anyone who actually paid this feel like they got their money's worth? Where do these people people live, and how can we become them? Because 25 grand could buy you, what, 3 WWE house show tickets these days? Number 14. Fans pushed him into a hair transplant. If the fan who held up that sign reading "The Bald John Cena" is watching this, congratulations. You are single-handedly responsible for one of wrestling's greatest heel turns against male pattern baldness. John Cena saw your little message, got embarrassed, and eventually decided to do something about it. So really, you did the Lord's work. Cena told People that he wished he'd done the transplant 10 years earlier, saying if there wasn't so much shame around it, I'd have gotten it done ages ago. Translation: thanks internet for bullying me into self-improvement. He finally went through with the transplant in November 2024 after carefully researching the best option for his very famous scalp. Judging by his retirement tour, it worked. The man's hairline came back stronger than his old US title reigns. Before the transplant, social media was brutal. During his match with Austin Theory at Wrestlemania 39, fans were zooming in on screenshots like CSI analysts, trying not to blind themselves on the shiny bald spot. You'd think they were investigating a murder, not a natural part of being a man and growing old. Personally, I'm in favor of embracing the baldness. Clearly, John Cena was not, and that's okay. There are two different types of people in this world, after all. People who are correct, and John Cena. Number 13. He shared nervous text messages with Bray Wyatt before Mania. Wrestlemania 36 will forever be remembered as the strangest in history. Forced behind closed doors at the Performance Center, WWE nonetheless entertained fans across 2 nights as millions watching tried to comprehend the ever-changing landscape of the COVID-19 pandemic. Closing the first night with The Undertaker versus AJ Styles in a Boneyard match proved to be a popular decision. It was also one that had John Cena crapping his pants. John once told Chris Van Vliet on the Reporter's Inside show that he watched the Boneyard with an ominous feeling in the pit of his stomach. Reaching for his phone, he sent off a text to Bray Wyatt saying he was nervous about how their upcoming Firefly Funhouse match would come across as a follow-up cinematic accompaniment to the Boneyard. In a nice moment, it was Wyatt who put his peer's mind at rest. They'd already recorded some of the scenes for the Firefly Funhouse, and Bray had the confidence that it would all come together nicely during the second night of Mania. He was correct. John actually had nothing to fret about, but he went into night 2 with trepidation after seeing WWE's first theatric set piece. He wasn't 100% sure if the fans were going to embrace the wacky, comedy-laced and frankly odd Firefly Funhouse that he and Bray had put together. Their match included Cena going back to his humble beginnings as a boots and tights wrestler, plenty of references to Wyatt's past, and it also saw both men briefly join the NWO before looping back around to the present day. Number 12. His toilet break saved somebody's Mania moment. One can only imagine the kind of pressure doing the rounds backstage during WrestleMania. It is WWE's most important event, and that has been the case since 1985, and the production budget has ballooned to insane amounts in the modern era. Today, Mania is big business, and it requires laser focus to pull off. Timing is obviously one of the most important aspects because everything has to slot in nicely, or else. Brodus Clay was likely bummed out behind the curtain at Mania 28. He had just been told that his segment was going to have to be cut from the format due to time constraints. That's when a passing John Cena leaned in and whispered to Brodus that he was heading to the bathroom and it might just take him a little bit longer than management wanted because he was just about to wrestle The Rock in the main event. Basically, Cena was ensuring that Clay still got his spot, still got his segment right before the headliner. His plan was to be posted as missing from Gorilla as higher-ups searched for him, meaning they'd need to press ahead with the Brodus stuff whether they wanted to or not. The fans might not have missed the dancing, but John realised that it was a big deal to Clay personally, and it didn't sit well with him to think of the dancing dinosaur missing out on his moment. Ah, good old Brodus Clay. Whatever happened to that guy, eh? It's like he got released by WWE and never did anything again. Weird one. Next, number 11. As I was puking, I crapped my pants. So, if you don't want to listen to an entry about John Cena pooping, hit the timestamp below. You're an adult, make your own choices. Still here? Good. Then let's talk about the most stress-inducing plop that John has ever dropped. The poor WWE staff who had to clean up John's mess years ago probably wanted to slap him for what happened during a Canadian house show when he was wrestling Scott Steiner. Or at least that's where Cena said it happened. The only record of him working Steiner was on the 14th of December 2002 live event in Jacksonville, Florida. It's entirely possible that John's memory is not working. Either that or Cage Match just doesn't include details from the show he's talking about. Regardless, John told WWE Magazine in 2008 that he wrestled Steiner while suffering from food poisoning. He figured things might get messy going in, but there was nowhere to hide. At one point during the match, Cena took a DDT and rolled out of the ring. Immediately, he asked the timekeeper where the best place to puke was, and was told to go under the ring. So he did, but the fledgling star also crapped his pants as he vomited, making for the worst dirty finish in wrestling history. In fairness, it was WWE Magazine where he told this story, so there is a good chance it was made up. Regardless, I had to read about it, so now you have to hear about it. Sorry. Number 10. He once had a movie tie-in finisher. Admittedly, some people out there will remember this, but Cena debuted a new 6 Move of Doom in 2018. During an otherwise forgettable house show match in Shanghai, China, he introduced what would briefly be known as the Lightning Fist to much fanfare, in what was either a colossally bad idea or a giant rib. The move saw John make an absolute meal out of hitting the ring, crossing his forearms across his chest, and unleashing a punch to the face. He literally just punched a bloke in the face, called it a finisher, and laughed all the way to the bank, even using the move at Super Showdown 2018. Still, John was having a laugh, and that's probably all he cared about. He probably did it to annoy people who said he only knew how to do 5 moves. Besides, the new finisher was a reference to his movie, tentatively titled Project X, with Jackie Chan. Project X was eventually renamed Hidden Strike and was released in 2023. Years beforehand, Cena hit the Lightning Fist in an event so disconnected from the movie that nobody in their right mind would have put the two things together without being told about it. For the record, the film had a budget of $80 million and raked in just under $1 million, so yeah, not exactly one of Cena's finest hours. Number 9. Cena knew his WWE career was tanking. Ruthless aggression was the catchphrase on John Cena's lips when he debuted versus Kurt Angle on the 27th of June 2002 episode of SmackDown. It was a losing effort, but Cena made his mark and left an impression on everybody. He went directly from that debut to a match with Chris Jericho at Vengeance in July, but then things started to drift away. On Stephanie's Places, John told how he knew deep inside that things weren't going well. Fans just hadn't connected with anything about his act beyond the debut, and he was really struggling to get over after an initial flurry. Worse, he was fully aware that he sucked inside the ring. There had been no signs of improvement since the Angle confrontation, and that was lingering on John's mind. He was feeling the heat, so much so that he figured it was only a matter of months before WWE let him go. Stephanie hearing him rap on a tour bus changed everything. That was the break that Cena needed, but it wasn't a knowing ploy from the guy. He didn't even know that Stephanie had been listening to him peel off rhymes and verses, and he didn't think of pitching a bad boy rap gimmick for TV until Stephanie heard him and said, hey, this could work. The character saved his skin. It was, in John's mind, the difference between getting to stick around in WWE or being cut loose and told to try his luck in TNA or on the independent circuit. Playing the Spitfire babyface with the garish boots and tights just wasn't working for the future Super Cena, and he knew it. Number 8. It was his call to stop rapping. Most people likely believe that WWE changed Cena's character from witty rapper to real-life Barney the Dinosaur in 2008 once the promotion went PG, but that is wide of the mark. Watch company content from before that switchover, and you'll find that John had actually started downplaying most of his edgier characteristics before the PG rating came in. Cena revealed himself on the WWE-produced Ruthless Aggression era documentary, which we know is 100% factual, that he marched into Vince McMahon's office and said they had to change things up right now. Why? Well, he'd spotted that more kids and families in general had started attending WWE shows before the PG change, and he wanted to embrace that, rather than risk turning them away. As such, he toned down his style, softened the edges, and went from a rapper to a family-friendly babyface. It's fascinating to learn that this was his call, not McMahon's. In fact, it's likely why the then boss trusted John as much as he did. He had his finger on the pulse of the WWE audience, and he noticed that things were visibly changing before his eyes. Live events had more children around ringside again, and he wanted to meet that halfway rather than thumbing his nose and being stubborn. It was a marketing master plan. WWE probably would have told Cena to tone things down anyway following the PG stuff, but he was way ahead of the curve and did it himself. Unfortunately, his infamous outburst about bologna fudge mustard and other clangers did end up coming from this. At times, Cena acted like a bit of a baby in a man's body, and it didn't suit everybody in the office, but it also made him one of the most successful wrestlers ever, so yeah, we can forgive that stuff. Number 7. The Undertaker thought he was ribbing at WrestleMania 34. The Undertaker's name carries respect in WWE circles. He was a locker room leader for decades, and it was smart for young wrestlers to do everything they could to get a nod from the dead man backstage. If he accepted them, then they were golden. If not, then others would follow suit, and there could be trouble in the old boys club that was WWE at the time. Something was different about Undertaker heading into WrestleMania 34. He was desperate to put on a good match after stinking up the place versus Roman Reigns the previous year at Mania 33, so he trained hard to get in great shape and was looking forward to putting on a 30-minute war with John Cena. Only that didn't happen. The legend only found out that his match with Cena would last less than 3 minutes when he arrived at the building for the show. At first, he thought Vince McMahon was taking the piss, but John also pointed out that, hey, he'd been burying Undertaker during the pre-match promos. So, to him, it had to be a squash, and he had to be the one staring at the bright lights above. Undertaker thought that both men were ribbing him. Surely, they hadn't spent all this time building the match, only to just go 3 minutes? He was wrong. Privately, The Undertaker was disappointed when he found out that John didn't want to tear down the house with him, even though at that stage of their respective careers, the way it played out was probably for the best. Number 6. WWE nixed a heel turn in 2012. Even though WWE resisted turning John Cena heel until 2025, they actually contemplated having him go rogue countless times before that during his peak run, but strong merch sales, John's own unwillingness to turn his back on the fans, and changing creative plans elsewhere always prevented it from happening. Ex-WWE writer Brian Gewertz once said on the Cheap Heat podcast that Vince McMahon nearly turned Cena heel heading into WrestleMania 28's match with The Rock. Come the show itself, he would have had new music, a boxing robe in his entrance attire, and a singlet look with boots, and he would have ceased literally changing people's lives with Make-A-Wish outside the ring. Ultimately, it was scrapped, but Cena confirmed himself on Chris Van Vliet's Insight show, saying that he got cold feet about the whole thing. He hadn't been a heel since going babyface in late 2003. Back then, fan sentiment had helped him turn. His rap gimmick had been purring away nicely since the previous year, and John was gaining momentum as a breakout star. People turned him organically, and the face run stuck. After batting away suggestions of a heel turn for years, Cena seemed destined to do so in 2012. He recorded new entrance music especially for the turn, but WWE didn't go through with it in the end. It doesn't exactly sound like anybody was really up for it. They half-heartedly pitched it, got some things rolling, and then cancelled it once push came to shove. Number 5. Cena regrets his behaviour towards The Rock. Generally, despite collectively knowing that they were doing monster business and had chemistry in segments, John Cena and The Rock didn't always see eye to eye. They weren't friends behind the curtain during their 2011 to 2013 rivalry. If anything, John believes he was a little rough on The Rock throughout, which is something he apologised for during a chat with Howard Stern in 2024. According to Cena, he was wrong to publicly question just how much The Rock loved wrestling. At the time, he couldn't understand why the Great One was splitting his focus between Hollywood and WWE. Obviously, given his own success in film, he now understands the mindset. Looking back, Cena was slightly surprised that The Rock was able to be so professional in the face of some verbal jabs that John launched at him. It was all business, albeit with an edge. Cena openly mocked Dwayne Johnson for scribbling promo notes on his hand before segments, and he stuck the boot in pretty hard, building towards their matches at both WrestleMania 28 and 29. The crux of John's argument seemed to be that Rocky had ran away from wrestling as soon as the silver screen came knocking. Nowadays, both guys get along really well. Rock was even there for Cena's fabulously executed heel turn in 2025. He didn't play much of a role afterwards, but they'd come a long way from two guys who looked like they wanted to headbutt each other for a few years there. Number 4. Cena was the last to know about his turn. This is wild, but it's apparently true. Triple H left Cena until last in line when figuring out who was on board with the heel turn at Elimination Chamber 2025. The game mapped out his plan of action on the WWE Unreal Netflix series that aired earlier this year, which clued in fans on exactly who found out first. Nick Khan was first, and he thought it was a great idea. Then, after getting his blessing, Triple H called his old foe, The Rock, to find out what he was thinking, after The Rock had previously pitched the generationally dumb idea of Cody Rhodes turning heel. Incredibly, Hunter then dialed rapper Travis Scott of all people to let him know what would be happening, and after that, he got in touch with Cody Rhodes to lay everything out. You might be wondering when John Cena's name is going to pop up here. You know, the dude who was actually turning heel. He didn't even get the nod next. Creative team members Ed Koskey and Bruce Pritchard knew the scoop before John. He was legitimately the last person that Paul Levesque called about the Chamber's booking. If anything, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the WWE boss would want to sound out Cena first and foremost. No, even Travis Scott knew that John Cena would be going heel before John did. Levesque ran the risk of telling everybody and their auntie about the plans, then finding out that Cena maybe wouldn't want to go through with it in the end. He clearly did, but what if that wasn't the case? Number 3. He hated the heel run. John Cena will be the first person to tell you that his 2025 heel run was a complete and utter waste of time. It started hot. The entire wrestling community was shocked and stunned when Cena turned on Cody Rhodes at Elimination Chamber to seemingly side with The Rock and Travis Scott. It was one of the greatest WWE angles of the decade, if not of all time. Then things turned south. The Rock vanished. Cena barely mentioned him, and the main meat of John's villainous streak became repetitive "you people" promos and some complete nonsense about an abusive relationship with the audience. The whole ordeal came across as undercooked, and there was never any explanation for why he had joined forces with the final boss. WWE realized that they were swimming upstream and cut their losses. They turned Cena babyface again for the final stretch of his retirement tour, then had him say sorry to the same people he'd been calling out for months. It was messy, and even John knew it was lame. During interviews, John relented that his heavily publicized heel turn had bombed in the worst way. There was nothing to it after the first shockwave hit. WWE penned a compelling first chapter, but then didn't know where to go from there. In short, the heel turn shouldn't have happened at all unless there was a worthy follow-up. Even Cena realizes that in hindsight. WWE invested a lot of time planning and carefully considering what would go into the turn, but not what happened next. And it showed. Number 2. WCW almost signed him first. It's crazy to realize that WCW has been gone for 25 years. A quarter century just like that. It's even wackier to hear that the now defunct company almost signed none other than John Cena to a deal before WWE could get their hands on him. This is a story that John told on Busted Open Radio a few years back. Apparently, WCW's top brass viewed him as a prospect and they were interested. Their interest prompted the then WWF to make the move and snap John up. They leapt in with a counteroffer, which John said was strictly so that he wouldn't go to WCW for peanuts. Peanuts? From the same promotion that hurled money at guys that didn't even fly in for TV? Surely not. To be fair, Cena wasn't a household name in the industry at that point. He was simply a rookie with a great physique, looking to make a name for himself. The scouts knew he was something special, but Cena admitted, "I kind of got hired defensively. The McMahon family just didn't want WCW to get their paws on anybody." But of course, had Cena actually showed up on Nitro, his contract would have been available as an option when Vince bought the remnants of his own competition in March 2001. So, put another way, there's a solid chance he would have ended up in WWE anyway. The group refused to take any risks on that, however, and signed him up. Christ, it would have been some story for John to tell had he wrestled Goldberg on Thunder or something like that. Or worse, maybe he'd have been staring at the lights for Kiwi on Worldwide. Good grief. Number 1, John wanted to play Vince McMahon in a movie. This is highly unlikely because, you know, lawsuits, but there was a now abandoned biopic called Pandemonium planned on Vince McMahon back in 2017. At the time, John Cena was doing everything he could to drum up acting gigs and make something of himself in Hollywood, but he also knew that he was still closely associated with wrestling. So in 2017, John told The Hollywood Reporter that he would love to step into Vince's shoes and actually play the role of his boss in a movie. In an honest moment, Cena did say that another, more seasoned actor would probably do a better job than he could, but he fancied giving it a go regardless. Imagine, it would have been crazy to see Cena made up to look like retro Vince as he schemed Wrestlemania, Royal Rumble, Hulkamania, and more. Disgraceful events in Vince's life that have happened since then mean there is next to no chance of the film ever being made. The closest we'll ever get to anything like that is the Netflix series from 2024. That did not go into any level of depth on the legal stuff or the lawsuit against him, but it did contain a lot of waffling from Vince himself. Maybe Netflix missed a trick by not ringing John up to ask if he'd like to play Vince in certain segments. That would have been totally unnecessary, but he might have gone for it. He was definitely game in 2017, that's for sure, and in the end, it was a near fall for producers keen on bringing the project to life. Deep dive on John Cena done. See you later.